I've had an interesting relationship with the films of Yorgos Lanthimos through the years. I started off not being a massive fan of his, but then I got introduced to so many more of his works, and this recent run that he's been on, starting with Poor Things, has really hooked me into his work. He's a filmmaker that I was willing to travel interstate for to see his previous film, Kinds of Kindness, which I also enjoyed, and now it's time for his latest feature film, another collaboration with Emma Stone with Bugonia. Let's talk about this one.
Welcome to the headquarters of the human resistance.
Where's my hair?
As we know, Yorgos is a very wild director with a very audacious vision in the way that he approaches his films, the way that his style is incorporated to such an interesting form of dialogue, and this just bizarro worlds that he creates are so very interesting. And Bugonia is his latest attempt at that in what might be his perhaps most straightforward film, and a very good entry point into his work, I believe, as for a lot of this, it is very much a tense thriller about an abduction by some conspiracy theorists. A lot of things get drawn up throughout this film that discuss the present climate and the way that media has shaped us, and just concepts about the world at large, which are so ambitious and interesting, but goes into some very Yorgos Lanthimos directions, which I can't fully talk about without spoiling this movie, but it is very interesting indeed. The film largely focuses on the dynamic between Emma Stone's character, who is this girl boss CEO who has tons of wealth and influence and impacts workplace culture in significant ways. And she is kidnapped by two conspiracy theorists, one who believes in it a lot more than the other one and is very convincing of it. That person is played by Jesse Plemons, who plays his character Teddy, who is just so set in his beliefs that she is an alien and they need her to get to her mothership, essentially. She is chained up in the basement of his home, and many things ensue as he is trying to get information from her. Big part of this mystery is she an alien or not? And the film plays with that in such interesting ways and has you guessing all the way throughout. Certain moments of dialogue, there's a certain type of mannerism or something like that that might have you think one way or the other, and I was guessing all the way through until it reveals the answer by the end of this film, which I will not spoil. Another part of this dynamic is Aidan Delbus, who plays Teddy's cousin, who is largely influenced by the conviction that Jesse Plemons has in his beliefs. And the way that these dynamics play out, the way in which Emma Stone is doing her best to try and get herself out of this situation where she's been kidnapped and wants to say and do many things that will either keep her away from harm or just get her out of the way, get more and more intense as the film progresses. And the way that Yorgos Lanthimos plays with tone within this film, I thought was very special indeed. I think what makes Bugonia so excellent of a film, and the two standout parts to this have to be A, the performances, the way that they are committed to these roles. I've never seen Jesse Plemons take on a role quite like this. Someone who's just so paranoid and is willing to believe almost anything, no matter how outlandish it may seem, but I totally buy him as his character. The physicality of his role, the way in which he speaks, it all just sounds like this person actually believes everything that he's saying. Emma Stone is the other side of this coin as this CEO who has a lot of power. She's also very committed to this role. A big thing about this movie is the fact that she shaved her head for this movie. And sure, that's an aspect of this film, but what I really appreciated about her role here is firstly the way in which her voice changes in certain scenarios and the physicality of her role. I really appreciated a lot of the work that she does in the third act of this film, which sent chills down my spine. The film navigates into some pretty dark territory, and Yorgos Lanthimos has always been a filmmaker that is willing to go there. But this film feels more in line with a thriller at times, or even a borderline horror movie at times, in the way it sets up its tension and feels nail-biting all the way throughout. There's a particular sequence involving electricity, which was just absolutely chilling and one of the most disturbing moments in this film, and you couldn't quite feel that way if it weren't for Emma Stone's performance, which is just bone-chilling at times. I think it was utterly excellent, and the way in which camera placement is chosen in that specific sequence was very interesting. Yorgos has always made films which I just cannot guess where it's going to go. He is so unique in the way that he approaches his films, and yes, these are adaptations a lot of the time, but I actually think he works better in that space. And I think the screenplay by Will Tracy is very interesting in navigating a lot of these concepts and the commentary that this film has about the world, and kind of making you feel like dog shit by the end of it and having little faith in humanity. That is ultimately what is being said here, and sometimes it can be very overt and just no subtlety at all, and I don't think it quite hits those points home quite as well as something like Poor Things did. But I still think what really matters here is the intensity of this movie, the way it consistently builds, the way it consistently has you guessing all the way throughout, and just giving you an unpredictable journey within this thriller narrative, which I think is just so excellent in harnessing its key central performances. Jerskin Fendrix is back composing another one of Yorgos' films, and this might be the best work he's done with a Lanthimos film. I really like the score he did for Poor Things, but the one he does here for Bugonia is excellent, I think. Sometimes it captures a Spielbergian sci-fi film at times with this dark twist on things, and I really, really loved the avenues it would go down. It consistently surprised me with the way it was incorporated in this film. It has long moments of silence without any score, and then it just plays out of nowhere perfectly with the edit that I think delivered on maximum impact. There are very few sequences here in black and white that tell you quite a lot about Jesse Plemons' character particularly, and the way that he has been affected by both toxic workplace culture and just being treated like a drone, which is something that I think a lot of people can relate to within their workplace. I definitely can a lot of the time. And that's sad, and it is a good way of making you empathize with a character that is pretty evil for the most part. But the way that this score is incorporated in those black and white sequences, I think were particularly effective. I think the way it is utilized within the third act of the film is very interesting. And now let's dance around the third act without spoiling it, because it is a huge key component of this film. It takes some bold swings like a lot of Yorgos films do. It delivers on the weirdness that you'd expect from a Yorgos film, and I think some of the best aspects of this movie are in here, and some of the worst aspects of this movie are in here. I think the performances are really heightened here. I think this is where you see the best of Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone, particularly after a very shocking scene happens that has a lot of violence within it. From that point on, it's just so bombastic, it's so entertaining, it can be so dark, and a lot of the critiques that the film is bringing up all come to the surface here in a very unsubtle way, which I didn't particularly enjoy. I'm very unsure about the very ending of this movie and the weird swings it takes. I'm used to that with a Yorgos film. I'm on board with that. I love Poor Things. I really enjoy Kinds of Kindness. He does some wacky shit in both those films. So it's not Yorgos being crazy and strange that turns me off this ending. It's the way it's implemented in the film and the way that it just feels so jarring with the tone of this movie all throughout. In what is perhaps one of Yorgos' most grounded films, it then just goes just crazy in a way that, sure, it does tie in to what is happening with this movie, but I don't quite like the way it was implemented personally. I just found it very jarring and just totally different from a lot of what the film was building up, and it felt a little underwhelming to me personally. I think some of you may disagree with that take, but for me, it just didn't quite work, even if it does have moments of pure excellence within it. Robbie Ryan was doing the cinematography for this film, and I think he completely understands how to capture a Yorgos film and the style of a Yorgos film. He is so instrumental in that, and that collaboration that he has had with Yorgos has led to some beautiful cinematography, which is so excellent here. I think there are so many great close-ups in this film. I don't think it's the prettiest Yorgos film. I think that, once again, goes to Poor Things, which I do think is his best work. But this film is just so great to look at times. I especially love the certain angles he utilizes that are just such a trademark of his that almost feel like a fisheye lens, but in this one, not quite as far as that. The way that he plays with depth and perception in this film, I think, really work in highlighting power dynamics and just telling us a lot about the character without them having to deliver some crazy bombastic performance, even if the performances are exactly like that at times. Overall, I think Bugonia is an excellent film. I think it is a great entry point into the world of Yorgos Lanthimos and the kind of style that he employs in his films. I think for the most part, it's his most straightforward film. I think the performances are just wonderful work. And if this is going to be perhaps the end of the collaboration between Emma Stone and Yorgos, this is a great way to cap it off because she is unbelievable in this film. I think she deserves all the praise in the world. I think she is one of the greatest modern actresses. She is phenomenal. And Jesse Plemons is incredible in a role that completely removes typecasting or anything like that, because he just delivers on something so outside the box for him that I adored the risk there. There's so many great little supporting performances all throughout. I think it's technically superb. I think the story is very gripping a lot of the way through. Its unpredictability is all there, making an interesting film that I really, really engaged with a lot of the time. As I said, I am mixed on the ending, and the way that it delivers its messaging is a little bit too unsubtle for my taste, especially in a film like this. It just feels a little disappointing, especially for such a smart filmmaker like Yorgos, and having a screenwriter like Will Tracy, who has shown to deliver some great satire in the past. But as a score, I'm going to give Bugonia a 4.5 out of 5. I think this is one of the better films of 2025 and is definitely worth a recommendation. You should definitely check out this one. And those are my thoughts towards Bugonia. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.